in this video we're going to look at the multiple choice questions from your homework sheet. So if you've answered them, fantastic, or have answered as many as you can and just using this as a guide, that's fantastic. I'm not going to stop and start after each question, I'm just going to keep going. So if you were fine and need to fast forward at any point, please do so. You probably do that already anyway, but just in case, don't feel like you have to watch the whole video to do this. I just realised I've still got that on, so let's just start afresh. Okay, so this is in preparation for your tests. First of all, your multiple choice test, which is focused mostly on using your CAS calculator. So if you have to solve an equation, you are expected to do it on your CAS calculator. And because it is CAS focused, remember, it takes less time to do things on your calculator. So if you were to do the whole test with by hand, then you might not get it all done. So do make sure you know how to use your CAS calculator. So I'm going to go through the 10 multiple choice questions and do my best to do them using CAS. Please don't think that the questions on your test are going to be exactly the same. I'm not the person writing your test. So the teachers who are writing your test, they obviously haven't seen these questions. They could be similar, they could be different, but basically the topics we've covered are the same. Okay, so if you understand these 10 questions, then go on to do the short answer questions and understand them. You should be fine for your tests. Okay, so question 1, the solution to -4 times 2x minus 6 equals 10x is, okay, so remember, solve is your friend. Type in that equation exactly how you see it. Okay, so everything is good. Oops, I've got to put the x on the end. Okay, so just make sure you check, and it's 4/3. The good thing about multiple choice tests is if you made an error here and it's not here, then you would go back and do it again. Okay, so the answer for that one is C. Pretty straightforward. The number line that represents the solution to the inequality, blah, blah, blah. Okay, again, we're going to be using solve. So 2 minus a on 3. If you want to use fractions, you can do this. A on 3. Then we've got less than. Remember, we get the inequality signs from here. So less than 4. And we're solving for a, comma a. So a has to be greater than -6. Now remember, we are looking for an open circle at -6. So it can't be A, can't be B, can't be C. There's an open circle at 6, and it can't also be E. So we don't even have to worry about which direction it's pointing, because there's only one option that has an open circle at -6. Now, if we had 2 open circles at -6, we would then have to say, well, the number A has to be bigger than -6. What is the number that is bigger than -6? -5. Okay, so you can see the arrows pointing in that direction. Okay, question 3. If -1, 2 is a point on the line ax minus 4y plus 11 equals 0, the value of A is. Okay, so this is a bit of a tricky one. So we can just use solve. And I don't know whether some of you may have seen this in your questions. I definitely haven't had anyone come up and ask me for help. So I'm just going to write it. So we've got a times x minus 4y plus 11 equals 0. Now, it does say that, I just pointed at the screen, okay, you can't see me pointing. Okay, it does say that this point, -1, 2, is on the line. So that means instead of x, I can put -1, and instead of y, I can put 2. So just make sure you do times 2 there. Okay, so you see how I did that substitution for x and y, and we're solving for a, so comma a. Okay, so a is equal to 3. So the answer for that one is B. Okay, question 4. The graph shown has the equation. Okay, it is a horizontal line. So that means it only goes through y. Okay, see how it only goes through y? So we're not going to see any x's. X's are gone. We just want the y equals. So anything that is not y equals, we delete. So it's not going to be A. I'll explain that in a sec. It's not going to be D, and it's okay. So we have 3 that it's y equals. Now there's also no x component, as I said before, there's no x's. So can't be B. And also E has an x component, so it can't be E either. And it's C. In a horizontal graph, you have just y equals a number. And that number is wherever it intercepts the y-axis. So here it is at -2. Just an offside, if you had a vertical line, so up and down, it is the same concept, you just have x equals. Okay, so you need to be familiar with what we call horizontal and vertical lines, which you should have covered last year and also for your revision this year. Okay, question 5. The gradient and the y-intercept respectively of the graph 3x plus 8y equals 2. So this is the straightforward, get me in the form y equals mx plus c form. So we have 3x plus 8y equals 2. Now remember, and I'm hoping that this isn't the first time you've ever seen me do this, because I've done it quite a few times, I've done it in class as well, that you have your equation, you want to get it in the form y equals mx plus c, so you just do comma y. There it is. Horrible thing is, sometimes we need to go on to expand it. Okay, so we just write expand, highlight it, press enter. Okay, and there it is. Now, on your calculator, it likes to start with positive numbers, so you can see it's not necessarily in the form y equals mx plus c, but you should be familiar, and I might write on this now. Let me just get my pen. So you should be familiar that the number that is by itself is your y-intercept. So your y-intercept is equal to 1/4. Now if you want to, you can say it's not B, D, or E. So now you have a 50% chance of getting it right. And the coefficient of x, okay, so if we just ignore that x, sometimes the x is up the top or it's beside the fraction, is -3/8. So your answer is A. Yeah, if I saw that 2/3, you know, even if you couldn't read this fraction, okay, you should see, well, all right, I can't read 2/3. From there, it looks like 3/8. Yep, done. It's also a negative gradient, so. All right, let's move on to question 6. The equation of the line joining the points -1 and 1, -1 is, now this one here, okay, is horrible when they don't put them all in y equals mx plus c. That's all right, we can deal with it. Let's first of all find the gradient. Okay, so this, actually I'm going to do it on the calculator because you should be able to do this now. So it's the difference in your y, so y2, which is -1, minus y1, which is 3, over x2 minus -1. Okay, so that's just x2 minus x1, sorry, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so your gradient is -2. So we can delete this one and this one. Okay, and actually I should use my fine. Okay, here it's -2, so it can be C. This one here, you can see the -2x is on the left side, but if I brought that over to that side, it now becomes +2x, so it can't be D either. This one here, if I brought that x over, it's going to also be +x. So the only option is C. I don't need to then go on and actually find the equation of the line, because in a multiple choice test, you should be doing elimination. Okay, so we'll just leave it there. I'm not going to actually find the equation of the line because there are other videos that do that for you. Okay, question 7. You may be watching this video and you haven't watched the video on midpoint formula just yet. So midpoint formula is very, very easy. Let's just see if I've still got it open up in my tabs. Yes, I do. Okay, so here's a midpoint formula here. We add the 2 x coordinates and divide it by 2, and then add the 2 y coordinates and divide it by 2. So let's go back to, yeah. Okay, so basically, oh, this one's tricky. Okay, so you might need to come back to question 7, or maybe just write down the working. Okay, so the midpoint, oops, hold on, there's an arrow. Okay, the midpoint, which I'm going to write as MP. So the midpoint formula is your x's are added together, sorry, I have a lapse in concentration, divided by 2. And then your y's are added together, -6 and b over 2. This is a difficult question. Now it says the midpoint is this. Okay, so it's already given us the answer. So, and I'm going to use a different color here. Because this midpoint is a point on the graph, okay, so you have an x coordinate and a y coordinate, this part here is equal to the x component of that coordinate. And let's just, because we can use another color, this part here is equal to -1. So we can go on now and use the calculator, just using solve if you like. So solve, solve, and we'll just do the x component first. So I'm going to write that a plus 7 divided by 2 is equal to 4.5. Okay, so I'm just worried about the x part at the moment, comma a, oops, I want to do that, didn't do my bracket. I wonder how many of you actually noticed that I didn't do the bracket in the right spot. Okay, comma a. Okay, and just check that you've done it correctly, because if you're like me and you forgot to put a bracket, okay, yep, that is a plus 7 over 2 equals 4.5. A is equal to 2. Which ones can I delete? I can delete B, C, and E. So it's either A or D. So we've got a 50% chance of guessing it, but we don't need to guess it because we can actually work it out. All right, then we have -6. So I'm doing the green part now. And that is equal to -1, comma B. All right, B is equal to 4. So your answer is D. So a tricky question, and having an understanding of the midpoint formula, it is probably one of the harder questions. But if you just take your time, maybe put this question in your bound reference. It's a really good question that is used to, I guess, separate those students who you really have a great understanding of the midpoint formula and those who just can apply the formula. Okay. All right, question 8. The line that is perpendicular to the line with the equation y equals -3x plus 7. Okay, I can look at that straight away and know that the gradient of this line is 1/3. Okay, gradient of the other line is 1/3, but remember, and this is only if you've watched the video, and I can see how many people are watching them, and it's not the whole class. So if you haven't seen the parallel and perpendicular lines when you're trying this, you should really do the parallel and perpendicular stuff first before you try to do this. Okay, so two lines, when they're perpendicular, the gradient of one line, so the gradient of this line is -3, and when you multiply it by the gradient of the other line, we'll just call that m, you get -1. Okay, so the two gradients multiplied, we don't know what the other gradient is, comma m, it's 1/3. So I can see here, let's just do some crossing out, that it can't be A, can't be C. Now, the others are not in the form y equals mx plus c. Okay, so don't go and assume that the gradient of this line is 3, just because that's the coefficient, or this one's -1, or whatever. Okay, you can do solve on your calculator if you like. So you can solve, write your equation, so 3x plus y equals -1, and do it that way. And I can see that the gradient of that line is -3, so it's not B. Let's cross that one out too. Now D and E, I'll show you, you don't have to use solve. For some people it's just going to be a lot quicker to not do it. If I brought that 3 over, I'm dividing both sides by 3. So that now makes that divided by 3. So the gradient is effectively -1/3. So it could be that one. This one here, when I bring that x over, it becomes a positive x, okay? Oh, hold on. I just realized I made an error. We want +1/3, not -1/3. Okay, so this is -1/3. So can't be that one either. Okay, because we want, this is -1/3. We want, let's go over here, +1/3. All right, so that means it's probably E. Let's just see. So we brought the x over. So now we're left with 3y equals x equals 4. And then when we divide everything by 3, we get +1/3. So it's E. Now you could have done solve on your calculator. So for those of you who don't like doing things by, keep pressing on the wrong button. So, why do you do that to me? Okay, so solve 3y minus x. I'm just checking that the last one is done correctly. Okay, so we have y equals x plus 4. If you don't like seeing it like that, algebra, expand, and there I can see it's +1/3. Okay, moving on to question 9. The line that is parallel to the line with the equation y equals 2x plus 3 and passes through the point has the equation. Now, parallel lines have the same gradient. So for this one, we can't really do this quickly on CAS, so I'll just do it here. Let's go back to blue. Okay, so your gradient is, and I did quite a few of these in the parallel and perpendicular line video, so gradient is 2 because parallel lines have the same gradient, and you're going through -3, 2. So that's x and that's your y. So in your equation y equals mx plus c, we have y is 2, m is 2, x is -3, and c is what we're looking for. So let's just solve for c. So c is 8. So our equation is y equals 2x plus 8. Now, is that written anywhere? Yes, it is. Now, if it wasn't written in that form, you just have to rearrange your equation to get it in another form, or you can just use solve on your calculator. All right, question 10. The solutions, this one's easy. Okay, simultaneous equations. Remember, all of you by now should know how to solve these on your calculator. I find it quite surprising when people still ask me how to do it, because it's so easy. You write one equation, space, and space, y equals 2x plus 3. And we're solving for x and y, but you just need to put comma x, and it'll give you both of them. So x equals -2 and y equals -1. So your answer is A. Well done, I finished under 20 minutes. Make sure you go on to do the short answer questions. There's quite a few there, but don't forget I have supplied the answers. So just don't copy the answers because there's no answers in the test. And if you're really struggling with something, please let me know and I'll come and help you. Thank you. Bye-bye.